Wayfinder is an action RPG MMO light released by Airship Syndicate and published by Digital Extremes. Right now you can pick it up in early access for the starting price of $20, but the game will release in free-to-play sometime in 2024. So a little bit of background on my channel, I basically chose Wayfinder as the game I wanted to cover the most, as it looked to be a promising game and concept made by competent developers and published by the team who published Warframe. I will admit my expectations were high, but they weren't insane by any means. I mean, it's 2023 after all, so you can't really expect the world. Though in this video I want to give you some of my first impressions of the game, how I'm feeling about it, and answer the ultimate question of, is it worth a buy? Just a side note that I won't be diving into some of the nitty-gritty aspects of the game. Instead, I want to give you a base level overview of the systems and kind of let you decide from there. Let's open up with the Wayfinders themselves. Right now there are 6 Wayfinders in the game, with plenty more on the way. But when you boot up the game for the first time, you only get to choose one of the 3, and you're stuck with that one you choose until you either shell out some cash or grind for the others. Which I somewhat understand, and it's really to be expected from a future free-to-play game. However, after spending time with the game, I personally disagree with how exactly this is handled. Yes, you're able to use any weapon for any Wayfinder, but you're kind of stuck with that Wayfinder. If you're not liking the abilities or how the playstyle of the game is with that Wayfinder, you're basically stuck until you spend money or grind for long enough. And that scares me a bit for the future and longevity of the game. It makes me wonder if players will actually stick through it with a character that they don't necessarily want to play as. But you might argue against that statement and say in the tutorial you can choose to test out Silo, Wingrave, and this, so you really shouldn't be able to pick one that you don't like. And to that I will respond and say, do you really think that playing a character for 20 minutes really dictates how much you'll still like playing that character for 3, 5, or maybe 10 hours down the line? Airship Syndicate have spoken that they are looking to add skill trees and additional abilities to the game, but we don't know exactly what they will be, at least not right now. This might potentially fix the problem at hand, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But one thing we don't have to wait and see and we can try out right now is the story. And I've covered this a few times on the channel, and the main reason why Airship Syndicate went with pre-made characters is because they wanted to lean into their strengths as a team. That being that they strongly believe they have the best ability to craft a story around a pre-made character, which I fully respect and commend. I'm just failing to get immersed in the story at all. To me, this just feels like any other MMO where I just skim past the story and don't really feel anything from it. And I want to make this clear, this has nothing to do with the pre-made Wayfinders in the game. I mean, pre-existing characters and lore in a game is just as appealing to me as a fresh start RPG where you roleplay anything you want. I'll take The Witcher 3 for example, one of my favorite games of all time. Geralt is an interesting character. He has deep lore and reasons why he might behave like he does in certain circumstances. He might seem very mundane in one tone on the surface, but when you dive deeper down you realize that there's layers to the reasons why he's acting the way that he does. But shifting back over to Wayfinder, the Wayfinders are just voiceless, which I know is changing in the future, but they just feel lifeless right now. Like I'm controlling a character without rhyme or reason, making it ever so difficult to get into any sort of rhythm with the story at hand. I don't think this is really a problem with the writing, but instead how it's implemented in the game. It makes me wonder if pre-made characters were really that much of a necessity in the game. But let's talk about something that was implemented a lot better in my opinion, and that's the art style of the game. Man, from the minute I first saw the trailer to when I loaded in after sitting in a queue for 5 hours, I've always enjoyed the art of this game. There's an incredible amount of detail given into this game, and you could tell that it was all handcrafted and lovingly made, with this cartoony style that makes it easy on the eyes, but not too overwhelming. I will admit too that when combat works, it works really well. The combat feels fresh but familiar and relatively responsive all at the same time. I do have a few gripes with the camera and the character positioning during some attacks, but for the most part, it's not that bad. And it's still early access, so those type of things get ironed out over time. Weapons are fun to use and offer some variety to the different playstyles, though for a character like Nis for example, I didn't feel the need ever that I would want to use a ranged weapon to go alongside my abilities. But combat can be both fast and challenging. It can have a few hiccups where the enemy is just kind of standing there as you wail away on him. The bosses are great, they're varied with different movesets and attacks, and I think Airship Syndicate is doing a great job with the design of some of them as well. I would love if they could look into varying some of the different arenas or boss rooms. Right now most of them are either flat or single tone, but the game has so much character, and I would love to see that reflected with some different terrain or challenges in more of the arenas. Either way, I'm really glad that I like the combat. It makes the dungeons more fun to grind through, and really just saves the experience as a whole. One vital part of that experience though is realizing that this is an MMO light and taking a look at some of the social aspects of the game. Of course, giant world bosses are in the game that you could do with other players, and you do have the option to queue with others while matchmaking for a dungeon, which has admittedly been nice for some of the harder bosses. My only complaint is that I wish there was more players to see in town, a higher max player count when it comes to activities, and just the feeling of a sprawling lived-in world with players. Luckily for me, there's plenty of that coming soon, so I'll let it slide for now for early access, which I will say, just judging from the game's roadmap, it looks to have a lot of future potential. But the question really comes down to, is it worth a buy now? In my opinion, if you're looking for a dungeon crawler where you can grind for hours on end, up your power level, and get better and better gear as you progress through different characters, I would say yes, pick it up today. If instead you're on the fence about the game, nervous about the servers of the game, or want to play a more complete game, I would honestly probably wait for Season 2 of Early Access, or maybe even the free-to-play launch. Keep in mind that this is a PvE game, so you're not missing out on anything by not being in the game right now, except for the unlocks in the Season 1 reward tower, I guess, if there was anything. I will flat out come out and admit that if you're looking for a grandiose story to take you on a journey like some of the great games that have launched in 2023, this won't be it. At this point for me though, personally, I am cautiously optimistic of the game moving forward. There's a lot of things that I like about it, and there's also things that are a little bit unnerving. The launch of Wayfinder definitely made me lose confidence in the game, but I am excited to continue to cover and watch Wayfinder hopefully develop into a game that we all fall in love with. I will say at this point, I'm truly embracing Wayfinder's new title, Wayfinder. I think I've decided that when Season 2 starts, I'll give a follow-up review regarding the state of Wayfinder, and I'll let you guys know if my opinion of the game has changed along the way. So if you'd like to see that, or just any new videos from me, please feel free to subscribe, and also leave a like. By the way, what are your thoughts on Wayfinder? Let me know in the comments below, but until the next video, I will catch you all later.